Welcome to another episode of ROL Radio. This week we have BJJ Brown Belt under Ilya Bodnya and Jeff Serifin, Jen Zanotti. Whether running your own businesses, hosting a podcast, personal training, being a life coach, or teaching jiu-jitsu, Jen does it all with a passion and professionalism unmatched by most. Listen as Jen discusses her feelings about moving into Phase 4 of Restore Illinois, how she finds balance in her own life while helping so many others to do the same, overcoming physical challenges on her way to becoming a successful BJJ competitor, and why she is such a huge advocate for women in jiu-jitsu. Here's ROL Radio with the incredible Jen Zanotti.
Welcome to ROL Radio.
And we're live. Gary, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Another fabulous episode of ROL Radio.
Absolutely. And it's a first.
Well, listen, today I feel like we have a celebrity in the house because, she does everything from
Right.
podcast to life coach, personal trainer, jiu-jitsu master phenomenon. I mean, it's just, there's so much going on to Jen. Jen, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Fantastic.
We are great.
Good.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to see you guys, even though it's virtually.
Yeah, it's nice to do this, to actually make contact with people. I did say it's a first for us today, and it is because as far as ROL Radio goes, you are our first female guest. So I wanted to point that out. Yeah.
I'm honored. Thank you.
So hopefully we won't do anything stupid, but there's always potential for that,
I have
especially on my
confidence.
side. Yeah. So welcome, and
Thank
we'll
you.
be sure when we put this out there to promote that, and let everybody know. So I think it's exciting.
Awesome. Well,
How
I'm
have you
honored.
been during this unusual time of 3 months?
Well, I've been, knock on wood, family, friends, everyone's, healthy, which I think is the most important thing. Of course, missing jujitsu. My boyfriend, who owns an academy and is a black belt in jujitsu, unfortunately lives in Maryland. So I have not seen him for almost 4 months, but he would have been the best jujitsu partner. But, I have to say that, of course, even with, financial struggles for people and people getting sick, this has been a time, I think, a big time of growth and for me to test a lot of stuff and opportunity. Fortunately, my business has evolved into a lot of personal training and life coaching. So I was able to adapt virtually very quickly. And I was probably on average seeing about 18 clients a week virtually, which was phenomenal. It's like it forces you to adapt to that change really fast. And I kind of just jumped into it. And so for me, business has, been great.
Well, that's great to hear because I think a lot
Yeah.
of people are experiencing obviously difficulties from a business perspective. I mean, this
Right.
is new, unknown, untapped territory for a lot of them, just like yourself and even us, right? But
Right.
the adaptation of new procedures, new systems, and being creative and agile
hmm
is critical, not only from survive perspective, but now you are talking actually being more successful.
Right. If I had solely relied on my beauty services, I'd, be screwed, say to speak. Like there's no way to virtually do that. And I feel like for a long time, I've been a makeup artist and esthetician for 19 years and I've had my business for 13, but I don't want to say made the excuse, but that, beauty services paid the bills. And I've been, evolved, and my passion's really been focusing on health and wellness. So I think this was a test for me to see that, 3 months, I had no beauty services to rely on. So I feel like that kind of was almost faded in a sense where it made me confident that I can really take a look now at the business and maybe step back from some of my beauty services so that I have more time. I can't do everything. nor do I want to do everything. I want to be able to focus on specific specialties now. And a lot of my clients still want to do virtual sessions because it's more convenient to them. And I think that's kind of the way the world is going to be trending for a while. So
Yeah, and that's another interesting factor. And we recently talked to Rudy Tapala, who is a personal trainer,
mm-hmm.
And he's mentioned that, virtual training introduces a different obstacles, right? I'm curious what this looks like on your end. Do you think that this is the route that this is going to start going, and in a sense, people will rely on the convenience of video and telecommuting, if you will, versus having that personal connection?
I think a lot of my clients, mostly that I've had virtually this past 3 months, started with me one-to-one in person. Um, I have had a couple people that have signed on that I never had an in-person session with, and we just did it virtually, which now I have the system down. So I think it works well. We still have this face-to-face connection, but we know, especially in my services of being able to touch, we know the power of that one-on-one connection is very strong. But that being said, I think the convenience, especially with people working from home now, they don't have to drive to get somewhere. I think they keep their appointments more so too, because there's less cancellations with like juggling the schedule. They're able to just jump on the session real quick, get back to work. There's no commute, there's no other obligations, and nothing else gets in the way of them committing to that session. And there's so many body weight options we can do, but also a lot of the clients have started, they've increased their own like home gym where it's like, we increase weights and different tools that they can use to have at home. But I think convenience is a huge thing right now, and I think it's going to trend. And plus, they can do it anywhere. So even if they're traveling, or now if I start getting customers, even from my end, a business perspective, I can have customers from anywhere. They don't have to be local. So I think there's a way that you can still come across very personal and genuine and have that rapport with your clients, um, you know, virtually. So
Do you think is as successful from the process perspective? I mean, can you make the same impact on the client virtually as you would in person?
um, I mean, that's a tough question. I can only go by the experience I've had, and I've seen a lot of results and progress with my clients. So like I said, I feel like we have this time to connect, and they're almost committing more to it because nothing else kind of gets in the way. There's no other excuse, and they don't have to juggle their schedule around as much or try to commute. So I feel like their accountability is a little bit more is a little bit better, and that's creating more of an impact, a positive impact. Of course, we miss being able to see each other, and hugs, and being in person, and there's nothing like correcting someone's form and physically seeing it one to one. But it's pretty darn close. I mean, I feel like I've had a really successful time with it.
Well, good for
You
you.
know.
I mean,
Yeah, it's great.
it seems like a success story. Gary, what do you think? I mean, we've been talking to quite a bit of people now, and everybody's expressing the challenges of the current time, and yet Jen is rocking it.
Right.
I mean,
I mean,
Well,
I don't know. I mean,
well, I
I
think
don't know
she,
what I'm doing, but
yeah. If you follow Jen at all, you're going to know that, right? She's on top of everything all the time. But, what we've been talking to here is mostly jujitsu people, right?
right.
So their world got real small,
Yeah.
and Zoom and stuff. Like, I teach the kids Zoom classes here. Um, they made the commitment and they're there. But it's definitely different because we rely on touch so much, and when we
Mhm.
started talking about having you as a guest, I was like, man, her whole world must have shut down because of all the things you do are so personal.
Mhm.
uh, and it's great to hear that. No, well, a lot of it did, but so much more opened up and you have other avenues. But I think that also has a lot to do with a person's personality. We know a lot of people that were just like, turned the lights off and went home. They didn't want to offer Zoom class. They got, they kind of went inside instead of seeing what they could do to help
Mhm.
others, and ultimately that helps themselves too. It's going to get their business, it's going to keep their business flowing, and it's going to keep their clients happy. I
Yeah.
know that the parents that we engage with their kids here, their parents are so grateful that we decided we were going to keep doing this stuff,
Oh, I'm
because
sure. Well, they're at home all the time now with the kids. It's something to offer, but I think, I wanted to be able to offer something to my clients because as much of a stressful time as this was and has been, they needed some kind of normalcy. And of course, for jujitsu, like that's a whole other ball game. The fact that I'm able to do personal training, that's one thing, and that works out virtually. Of course, we know jujitsu not so much, and we need that one-to-one. So to clarify on that, like we need that connection. And even with my women's class, I wanted to offer them something. So we did Zoom fitness classes and we could do some individual like jujitsu moves. But, of course, jujitsu has to be one-on-one. I mean, that's a contact. We need that. That's how you're going to, get better and progress at the sport and the art. And there's nothing that can really replace that. You can try, you can use dummies, you can do different, body weight movements. But I do think, I try to adapt as quick as possible because I needed to be there for my client.
Right.
I knew what they were going through and it was difficult enough. So that was the drive for me to be there for them. I'm their cheerleader. I'm their person. That's what I'm here to do. That's what I want to be able to do is empower other people to help them, to be their guide and their support. So I had to step up and do that and hustle. And I feel like I was even busier then. I'm like, how am I going to get back to a normal schedule now? Because I feel like I already don't have enough time.
Yeah, the past few days have just been like,
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on, checking my phone constantly, checking the calendar because I'm like, if I have any time, I'm missing something is what I'm thinking. I'm like, who am I leaving behind right now? So I'm constantly checking that calendar.
Yeah. But adapting, I think, is huge. And as a business owner, and like I said, that was a huge struggle for jujitsu schools. I mean, I know like Jeff, my boyfriend Jay, like, he had a lot of coaches doing Zoom classes and they've been able, Maryland's a little different. So they've been able to, they opened a little earlier than us and did parking lot classes. And now they can be indoors with a specific amount of people and they're using dummies and, they're adapting as best they can, but it's something. But it does force you to get creative. And I think if you don't keep an open mind, and if you're not able to adapt and get creative, that's going to be really unfortunate for your business. And I know that's hard for some people and it's a struggle, but like you gotta move with the times and try and figure something out,
So the $1 million question is, in my opinion, do you think this is going to go back to maybe not necessarily the same, but do you think this will continue evolving despite of COVID situation?
Like the business or
The business,
just
the virtual aspect, the whole thing. Like, do you think the businesses, the moment, the governing bodies will say, hey, we can do whatever we want, do you think that people actually will go back to where it was, or do you think it will continue evolving and people will actually take advantage of these extra tools and extra strategies that they discovered and continue building on?
Yeah, I think so. I've already had a number of clients tell me that they want to continue, which I said that's absolutely no problem. And one of the reasons is obviously for convenience, but I don't think everyone's so ready to jump back in. And I think that's going to be a while, even if the state opens up and is like, okay, we can all be together and go back to this, old normal. I think there's still a lot of hesitation and there's some people that are not going to be ready for that. So I definitely do think it's going to continue evolving. It's going to be an extra option, an extra tool. I think businesses all across the board have had to rethink things, how they're doing business, and are probably going to continue offering these other options because I don't think it's going to go back to normal. It's going to be this new normal for quite a while. And years ago, I had written down a whole outline for a membership site that I want to launch. And now I've been able to work on that during this time. And it's something that's virtual. It's convenient for people. It's for people who can't necessarily afford like a personal trainer for one-on-one sessions, but it's still giving them the accountability, the motivation, the tools. And, I think that the technology is just taking over. Thank God for technology, but I'm trying to offer as much of that with still the personal touch of Gen Z as I can, if that makes sense.
Well, that's amazing.
Do you think you'll be able to put it all together? Because like we're talking about our reopening, and how is everything going to schedule? How's it all going to fit? You're just going to have to make it happen, I guess, right? Like you adapted so far, you're just going to have to keep doing it. But that's the biggest part for me is like, man, the scheduling is going to be rough. How you going to fit it in?
From a jiu-jitsu perspective, I know, there's going to have to, and I don't know if you guys have seen phase 4 stipulations, but I was talking to Jeff about this. Getting back into jiu-jitsu, it's talking about getting tested before you get back on the mats and then getting tested every 2 weeks and then sticking with the same, 10 to 12 people, however many it is, for like 10 days. And, so that's going to be very tedious to schedule, especially when you have a large academy. For myself, with the women's classes, it'll be a little easier because I could just have them here at my space. And that allows, Jeff more openings in Evanston to kind of fill those classes. So I'll keep my location here, for a while until we can all blend back together. But even now I've been able to take in-person clients for waxing. I'm phasing out of facials only for my really good clients. This is my opportunity to kind of phase out of that because my schedule has become so full with personal training and life coaching. But it is a combination of in-person and virtual. So I have someone coming in for an in-person and then I jump on FaceTime for like my hour personal training session. But in person, it's strange. Like, you're masked up, you have your glasses, I have my face shield because I'm so close to the person, like in their face. You have to sanitize everything, and you get a little anxious when you're in that mask all day. And I can't even imagine like healthcare workers, but it's different. It's definitely different. So even just the preparation and the aftercare is going to take more time.
So, on that note, talk a little bit about your thoughts about the jiu-jitsu scene, right? So obviously the similar preparation, and you mentioned some of them, right? I mean, getting tested over X amount of time and same small groups and so on. All that has been announced about a week ago. What are your thoughts on this? Because I mean, I personally know there will be a lot of hesitant people who this could be actually, let's be real, this could be a reason for them to quit doing the things that they really love. Because it is extra, it is something, extraordinary or something out of the norm that they would have to do.
I think some people are going to be all in, and I think there's probably going to be people that are on the fence or like, I'm not going to go through that. I'm not going to deal with that. There's going to be opposing reactions. But honestly, for those of us, I think, who have missed and like love jujitsu, it's something. Even though as tedious as it is, we're getting back. You know what I mean? It's like it's baby steps. But if we can get on the mat and train with people, I think it's going to require a huge amount of trust. And you have to try. We always know, like, our bond with our training partners is huge. They're like our family. We trust them with our lives every day when we're training. But now it's going to be another step where, okay, if you've come in contact with someone that tested positive for COVID, like, you're going to stay home and not come and train. It's that whole aspect. And I think keeping those groups small, there's not going to be a lot of open mats. There's not going to be a lot of cross training. Now, some people may go do that, and that's fine, but it's going to be kind of up to the gym owners and coaches to not allow those people to come in, which is going to be hard. But your priority, our priority is to keep that group that is choosing to come in safe and do everything that we can to implement those safety precautions. And then gradually, I think, we will get back at it, even if there's eventually a vaccine. Not everyone might want a vaccine, or on the spot testing. Like that, I think, might be the new norm.
I think a lot of changes are coming. I mean, that's the bottom line. There's a lot of things we're going to have to do in order for us to do what we love, and some sacrifices are going to have to get made. The question will, I think, come down to the individual, whether they want to or are willing to go through these obstacles and do what's necessary to do what you love.
Right.
And the answer is no, and that's fine too. right? I mean,
And
there's
then
nothing
you
wrong
might
with it.
find, right. And you might find new people that are going to start wanting to train. Like,
And
Right.
honestly,
It's
and hon-
happening.
and
Yeah.
honestly, there might be some people who will actually appreciate the extra steps, people who are
Oh.
higher risk, and people who know that this is a safer place to be.
I mean, absolutely. I've heard of some stories, and I'm not going to say anything of where or who, but,
Right.
schools have stayed open and then it's like, come in and train, pay, $30 to come to open mat and you're training with whoever, like, great. And I'm like, I don't care about me. Not that I want to get sick, knock on wood, but I care about my parents who I see that are in their 60s. And I care about my nephew who I'm always watching, who's 15 months, like and I see clients all the time. Like, I care about the people I love and I don't want to pass that to somebody. So I'm going to be cautious.
And I think this is the moment that speaks volumes about an instructor, a leader, is somebody who puts, their surrounding over themselves, right? Putting your clients, your students, whoever they are,
Right.
I need to think about the larger picture here
Yeah.
versus just me, 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 me.
Right. Me, I don't care. I mean, if something happens to me, I feel like I can handle it, deal with it, like, knock on wood, not that I want to get sick, but I'm not thinking about myself. I'm keeping myself safe because of everybody else that I love in my life. And those clients, like, people are relying on me and trusting me to do, what's best for them. And I've had multiple people tell me, like, I'm going to come and see you because I trust you, and that's a lot of, to carry. So you better be sure, like, I'm doing everything I can to keep everything clean to perfection and taking all the precautions because, and giving them some comfort and normalcy at the same time, because
Right.
it is a weird situation, but let's make the best of it.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, when Gary mentioned that we're getting you on the show,
Mhm.
we got both stoked. And then, we start thinking,
Thanks, guys. Uh-oh.
what are we
He's
going to talk to
putting me
Jen about? And then we very quickly, realized that the list to talk to you, the list of things to talk to you about, it's so long that we're going to have like 10 episodes at least.
Yeah.
Right? So Gary was kind enough to kind of, list out the things that you do. And it's
Uh-huh.
mind blowing. And the funny thing is that I knew about all of them and I never realized the amount of stuff that you do. Gary,
Right.
let
Yeah.
go.
Well,
List it
there's
out. Go.
all right. Well,
I don't
there's
have much of a life besides
right.
everything
No,
I do.
well, I think you have quite the amazing life, which is we have Getting Zen with Jen, the podcast, Body by Zanotti. You just got certified by the National Academy of Sports Medicine. You have Embrace the Amazing, which is the lifestyle
Mhm.
work that you do, and we're talking about how you're going to fit virtual stuff in with your classes. Um, for me, I'm just blown away by it all and how you do
And
it all
then jujitsu.
professionally, right?
Right.
And jujitsu. Have you always been like this from the time you were a kid growing up, being able to juggle all this and keep it straight? Or is this something you developed as you got older? Because I need a lot of help. So I'm trying to get a little info here.
I think it's something I developed as I got older. I mean, when I started my business, I started my business when I was 25 and had no idea what I was doing. So I was young when I just was like, okay, I'm going to start this business, and it's clearly evolved. But the key is, I'm a Capricorn, so I'm very I'm sometimes an overachiever. We'll just put it at that. I'm a little bit of a control freak, but I
Hold
believe,
on. Sometimes and a little bit.
yes,
I want to make that clear.
okay, sometimes and a little bit. I take my own, I try and practice what I preach and incorporate some balance but I just believe that you can accomplish anything as long as you plan and organize. So I'm a very organized individual. I put everything in the calendar. I have to-do lists all the time that keeps my brain, like, I need to write everything down and know what I need to do. And I'm a big believer that you can utilize every minute of the day. A lot of people waste a lot of time, and that's fine, but don't expect to get something done. Like, you need to plan it. Don't set yourself up for failure. Look at your week, even if it's self-care time, I think that's one of the biggest things that gets thrown out the window for people. But it's like, put 5 minutes of the day in your calendar or on your to-do list, and you're going to just sit there by yourself and breathe. I mean, whatever it is. But if you're consistently doing that, and organizing it, we plan everything else in our life. So I think that's one of the biggest things for me is, I have my work calendar, I have my personal calendar, I have my to-do list. And I'm very much like a creature of habit and routine oriented. So I make it, and it's in there. I mean, to me, it's, easy peasy, even though it can get overwhelming at times. I need my 8 hours of sleep at night. Let's just say that. If I don't get it, I'm not functioning properly.
Yeah.
So what's the most challenging thing during your insane schedule, which we're gonna get to in a moment, because I'm curious what your schedule looks like actually.
Mm-hmm.
What's the most challenging part?
I think, well, I think probably jumping from one thing to the other, which is what I'm trying to streamline a little bit with certain services. So I'm really trying to take it down so that I'm not going from a facial to a wax to a personal training virtual to jujitsu to, to a life coaching session, then a Reiki session. That you can kind of be all over the place with that. So I'm really trying to narrow down my services. I mean, it's a hustle, guys. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what else is really challenging. I mean, I love everything I'm doing. So I think that's a big part. I do stress myself out sometimes, but I think it's not chronic stress. It's like stress that pushes me and I thrive off of it. So I can be overwhelmed for a moment, but I need to be doing stuff all the time.
Well, in all honesty, I mean, that's a trick question, because anytime you speak with, any successful entrepreneur, they'll tell you that they are more busy than ever will be, and they are taking more on. And it's not because they are crazy. It's because they have passion for what they do, and they want to continue evolving and learn more and drive more, provide more services, more things to their client to benefit other people. I mean, that's what it boils down to.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I've learned that's been a lesson is to say no to certain things, because, no is a complete sentence. That's one of my favorite quotes, but I very much want to make people happy and say, yes, I'll do this, that. But I realize, I want to give 100% to what I'm doing and saying yes to. So if I have to say no to something, that's okay. And I don't need to justify that. But really just, I think taking an honest look at my schedule sometimes. There was a time where I would be working at the shop, and then I'd be training at night in Evanston, teaching, and then I'd get up and do a private. I'd get up at 5 a.m, do a private with one of my teammates at 6 o'clock in Skokie, have that whole day again, clients, back to Evanston, teach, wake up again the next day at 5, do the private in the morning. By Thursday night, I was done. And I was like, I can't do this. Even though it's great that I'm busy, it's what's really worth my time? And I need more balance for myself, because then I'm not working efficiently. And it's not all about, sometimes it's not all about making the money. You know what I mean? You really got to have a schedule you're comfortable with, where you can breathe a little bit. For me, rushing everywhere was one of the hardest things. I felt like I was always in the car having to rush and get to places.
Yeah,
that's been hard.
Yeah, I recently, I was sitting down with somebody doing some financial stuff, and last year I quit my full-time job, and I was telling this person, man, just do it, quit, take the hit, because you're going to be so much happier. And I spend at least 3 hours less a day in the car. So, and that was it turned into prioritizing. What am I going to prioritize to get me through life? And doing that has now helped everybody else that I'm associated with. I hope, Thomas. Yes, it's helped. And I just, you got to make sure that 3 hours a day in the car, how much more can I do at that time? And so you sacrifice a little bit maybe of financial, but nobody's paying me to sit in that car that long either. Right. once I started making those changes and reprioritizing my life and what I thought was important, Thomas and I talked about this in the first episode. You just become so much happier, and
Oh yeah.
and when you become that much happier, you can now not only are you focusing on yourself more, but you can go ahead and focus on the others around you and get the things done for them as well that you need to. So it once you restructure everything, I think it makes everything so much better, so much better.
There's this quote that I came across a long time ago, and somebody said, and I'm curious what your thoughts on this, and Jen.
Hmm.
They said, "It's not that you don't have time. The question is it priority enough for you?"
Yeah. I mean, I think you can take time to make anything happen, but you have to, like, time is worth so much. I feel like time is
Hmm.
priceless, and we have to look at that. But it's like, you really have to look at the importance. Like, is this really important to me to sacrifice my time? That's the most important. And I think if you want to attach a value to something, it's your time. You have to put value to your time, and you have to really be doing things that are worth that and that you love and that you're passionate about. And it's not always in the financial gain department. That's not always something that's going to, specify success. I think it's really you feeling fulfilled from what you're doing. And I think that's the most important thing. And people, that can be through financial, that can be through helping others. There's so many, just more family time, whatever it is, but you have to put that value to your time. And that's something that I've learned over the years, is being able to, you know, value it for myself, and also really kind of take my own lessons that I offer people. Like, I hold myself accountable to what I'm telling others to do. I'm like, well, I need to lead by example and do the same thing.
Give us an example. What do you mean by that?
Oh, telling people, that they need, like, self-care time. And, I mean, I'm here like hustling away, and it's like, oh, overwhelmed. I have this and that to do. Like, I need to take some time for myself to sit down and, meditate every day, or to incorporate that self-care. So I'll talk in my head and I'm like, okay, Jen, let's take a time out. Let's take some deep breaths, reevaluate, refocus. But of course, I can tell people to do that all day long, and then, we're our hardest critics. It's like we don't always take our own advice. So I think that's just something that sits in my mind, and I need to lead by example for people. So I need to live up to those expectations and use those tools that I offer to other people as well.
So as a personal trainer, as a leader, or as a, even a life coach,
Hmm.
how do you convince people, or what tools do you give people to really be successful in that area? Because, well, let's be honest, when we're going through new habits, whether it's changing the life, finding a new job, losing weight, starting jujitsu, starting
Hmm.
running, whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. It's a brand new habit that we're trying to incorporate in our life, right? And we have all these obstacles. Time is one, priority
Right.
is second. A third, let's be honest, I mean, body limitations. We might not be in a place where our body is really willing to accept this so willingly,
Right.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
how do you convince yourself to do these things to end of the day, a year from now, to be that much happier?
Well, the thing is, when I talk to people and we start, if it's like nutritional coaching or personal training, whatever it is, going over their life goals, we evaluate where they are currently. And I like to ask people what they feel emotionally, physically. And for instance, if we're looking over nutritional goals, I'm not one that's going to tell somebody, you got to stop everything you're doing and you're going to start this diet. I hate the word diet, but this is what you're going to do. I'm going to set that person up for failure, and it's going to be even worse. They're going to end up going on a binge. So what I like to do is I just like to see what they're doing right now. What are your limitations now? What are your habits like right now? Journal them and create a log, and you're going to send that to me the end of the week. The first week we really like work together, there's nothing that they're changing. I want to see what they're doing. And then I'm going to add to that or replace things. And we do that step by step. So then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I started incorporating greens twice a day. I'm doing that every day. I've done that for 2 weeks now, 3 weeks. what else can I do? That wasn't so hard. That wasn't so challenging. So it's really, our mind can play tricks on us, and we have to kind of get around that, where if we take away things from people, they don't like that, and they get, nervous and scared, and they're like, no, but I can never have this again. No, I didn't say that. We're going to incorporate moderation. But I think it's really showing them what they can do. And once they get a sense of that accomplishment, they're like, oh, okay, let's do more. Like, we can do this. And they start seeing how they're feeling from some small change can make such a huge impact. But that's how you get the person, I think, to, I don't want to say buy into it, but believe in themselves and realize that these little changes are helping them feel better. And then they're willing to do more. Because we all have a place we have to start from, even physically. I work with so many clients on balance, and even people who are super athletic, their balance, like it's not that great. And it's like, these might seem like simple things to do, like, oh, I'm going to work on my balance today. That sounds great. And it's like, balance is the foundation for everything. If you're sedentary or super athletic, like, you need to work on your core, your posture, your balance. We want to be able to walk through the day and have mobility. And so even starting there, it's like, you might be horrible at it at first, but the more we do it and the more consistent we are, the better you're going to get, the stronger you're going to get. So just allowing people to be gentle with themselves, understanding that I'm there with them for them to be honest too and help guide them through this, and just making those little changes, starting where they are, seeing what they're doing and how we can tweak that. So it's not just, going cold turkey with everything and starting something new, because I really believe that's going to just set people up to fail.
So essentially what you're saying is that 100% change in one day is never going to be successful, but 1% change over a long period of time is going to set you for lifetime success.
Absolutely.
Sure. All those little things. We've been talking, this is going to be a cool segue, I hope. We've been talking a lot about time, and we don't have a ton of it. And I know from a jiu-jitsu perspective, you are pushing all the time for women in jiu-jitsu. It's a huge part of your life. You're a huge advocate for it. Over the years, we've seen I've only been doing this for 3 years. 3.5. And just in that 3.5 years, I've seen the female population in jiu-jitsu rise greatly. And I think it's because of people like you. But can you talk about a little bit about why, we see a lot of obvious reasons, health and fitness, self-defense, as to why women should start jiu-jitsu. But are there any of the underlying things that maybe we don't see that aren't so obvious, as to why you think it's so beneficial and why you push so much for it?
I think I found jujitsu. I mean, of course, I wish I started when I was younger. I think a lot of us probably have
Me
that.
too. Yeah. Don't wait
But
till
I think
you're 46.
it was like I was 31 when I started. And, I started it after a couple years after I was married. And that's all, that could be a whole other podcast. But it really gave me, we say jujitsu saves our lives. And it just gave me a huge sense of empowerment that I think I was looking for, that I didn't even realize I didn't have. I don't think I realized I was looking for it. It just kind of all happened, and it was fated how I started training and was introduced to it. But that gave me such a sense of self. And I just, it was the love of my life. Jiu-jitsu, I just fell in love with it, and I was going 100%. Like, I never stopped. I started jiu-jitsu and it was like, then I was like training all the time, and I've never stopped. It's like 8.5 years later, I'm like, holy cow, what happened? But it really gave me the sense of confidence and empowerment. And I think it helped me make a lot of decisions that I needed to, because I wasn't happy in my personal life. And that was something that was really hard, because I would put on a smile and make other people happy and make sure everyone else was okay, but I really wasn't. And that was a place of survival for me, and it taught me who I was, and that I didn't have to live like that. And if I wasn't happy, like, that was justification enough to be able to leave a marriage that was not so good and not meant to be. And it gave me the courage to get out. And I think it just creates this, especially with other women, it's this sisterhood, and you're there training with each other, pushing each other. I think a lot of times women can be our own worst enemies to each other. And it's like, we really want to see it's a place where women can empower other women and really help them in their journey. If it's about the jujitsu or their life journey, usually there's a reason or something that's happening in someone's life for why they're going to start training. And it's really like that camaraderie and sisterhood of being there for each other. The most fulfilling thing to me is to watch somebody feel stronger about themselves. Like to see that transition and that progress and that change and transformation to me is everything. Just somebody that may have felt super down or almost broken and just feel this sense of strength and empowerment. Not to mention being able to like go out and train and compete and kick some ass and all of that. Like it's great, but you just create this bond and it's a sisterhood and it's so healthy. It's a healthy distraction or, a healthy vice, I'd say, that's good for so many things. But for me, I just knew how I felt and how it made me feel. And that is something that I try and promote all the time.
Well, but everything you mentioned right now is, those are the benefits of training for some time, and that some
Mm-hmm.
time that time could vary for different people.
Mm-hmm.
But also there is this factor of first time stepping on the mat.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very intimidating moment for anybody. And I think
Yeah.
for females in particular, it's even more because, I don't know how you girls feel, but
Mm-hmm.
walking into a room with the majority of men, knowing that you will be in compromised position doing a very physical contact oriented sport or
Absolutely.
hobby, could be very overwhelming. So how do
Mm-hmm.
you overcome that? What do you say to women, that you speak with,
Mm-hmm.
and how do you convince them to start this insane, addictive, never ending journey of,
Yeah.
should we?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, it's, it's like you become completely obsessed. But that's why I started, fortunately enough, like between Ilya and Jeff, I had very supportive coaches and I was able to start teaching when I was a blue belt, which is crazy. It seems so long ago. But the whole reason I wanted to, when I started training, I had all guys as my training partners. And that didn't bother me. That was fine. That was great. Great team, super supportive guys, love them all. But I noticed, I'm like, there's really not a lot of women's programs. And it is very intimidating for anyone to start, but women primarily, I feel like. And there's a lot of women who just don't feel comfortable if it's based on life experiences or religion or whatever it may be. They can't train with men or just don't feel that comfort. So it's like, well, why can't we just have this women's class? So I think having that, and having the choice, because I'll tell you, if people want to just train in the women's class, that's fine. But if they are wanting to compete, I do talk about the importance. I think it is important to train with both men and women and get those different energies. But that's something that can gradually happen. And I'm a protective mama bear. So I'm like, okay, you can roll with this person or that person. You're not rolling with that white or blue belt right there. Sorry. But so I keep an eye out but yeah, I think having the women's class is a great way. And I think every school really should have some kind of women's program because I just think it creates that safe, fun atmosphere where they're still going to get an awesome workout. And it's not, one of my biggest things was when I started, I didn't want it to be like, oh, it's a women's class. Like, this is easier, or it's, the girls are going to sit around and talk. And it's like, no, we're getting a kick-ass workout in there. Like,
Yep.
are you kidding? Like, it's hardcore. And I want that, but I want it in a safe space for women to feel comfortable to train.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm glad you said that because I get tapped out a lot, but the fastest I get tapped out is by a female here, and she catches me so much and so often and so quickly, and I'm just like, anytime anybody says anything about rolling with women, I'm like, go, she's right over there. Go test
Damn
yourself
right.
and see what happens, because
Yep.
you're going to be in a triangle or in an arm bar in seconds, and now. She's doing judo too, so it's like, oh, great!
Watch
So I
out.
can't even
Double threat.
stand up now, right?
Yeah.
I'm on my ass immediately, and what just happened, So yeah, I don't think if anybody out there is ever thinking that the girls' classes are less than, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
train with one of those girls that crosses over to the men's class too, and see what happens for you. Give it a shot. I think you're going to be not so pleasantly surprised, and it'll change your perspective.
And it's a great way to start. Like I said, then they can start transitioning in. Like once they feel more comfortable and they're like, okay, this is my team, my school, like I'll train with the guy, and like I said, I pair everyone up with certain people, but it's like, I'm grateful to have, everyone's super supportive. All the guys are really supportive at the school and they love seeing it. They want their partners or their daughters or whoever, coming in. They think it's a great thing that we have and they're super supportive of it. But yeah, it's just, it creates a great safe environment for everyone to feel welcome. I mean, I think, you want people to experience jujitsu. We want the more the merrier. So to have those options provided, I think is just great and beneficial for the school.
But at the same time, you mentioned yourself that you've been lucky enough where you had the opportunity to teach and be in that leadership role for a very, very long time. There's many academies out there. They're not in that position, or maybe the female presence is not as strong. And yet there are females who would like to try it or thought about it. What should they do then? I mean, sometimes it's impossible to find the optimal position where you're walking into a female class or there's a leader such as yourself. What should they do?
I mean, I think it's most ideal when you can have a women's class with a female coach. If not, I definitely think it's okay to have a male coach teaching a women's class, but maybe even doing like a 1 or 2 off. Like if there's people that in the community that are only going to be comfortable promoting it to that women's, group and just having a group of women training together instead of just throwing them into the gym, with a bunch of guys, like really still promoting it. Even if it's a male coach, I think that's more than okay. You have to work with what you have, and you don't want to just kind of set yourself apart. And not to say that, it's, if you have a female or 2 in a class and she's going to be in that class, invite the woman who wants to come train to pair up with that other, female. Like even if it's not a set like standalone women's class, like you can just pair people up together. I think there's ways to make them feel comfortable and welcoming.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's
So
all
I
about
think
it's all about setting them for success, right? Because ultimately,
exactly
as instructors, as leaders, that's what we want. And we want them to succeed,
right.
right? But
Exactly.
what do you tell females who want to join,
Mm-hmm.
who are thinking about it, and a female class is not available? Because I know there's plenty of them out there. I mean, I personally have encountered conversations
Mm-hmm.
like this, and the programs are not available, or maybe they are very small, whatever the case might be. Do you still recommend jiu-jitsu to women in
Oh
general?
yeah. I mean, like I said, I started with all training partners. So I would, have a conversation with them. And if it's somebody that's really down that wants to try jujitsu, I don't think that's necessarily going to be a barrier. It may be a little intimidating, but I think you have a good conversation with them and then put them with somebody who's a higher belt, who's probably a similar size, and tell them they're going to be in good hands. They're going to be with somebody who's very experienced and knows what they're doing. And that it's okay. Everyone, feels intimidated or it can be awkward, but it's nothing but professional. It's fun. It's safe. And, that's what I would always do. It's like setting somebody up with a higher ranking belt who knows exactly how to move, what kind of energy to offer, and is going to keep that person safe, but also give them the right appropriate guidance that they need.
Yeah, and I think what's cool about jiu-jitsu is, now we're talking about training, but there's this whole competition world,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think what's really becoming really, really cool, especially from a female perspective, is that female competition continues growing and it's bigger than ever been. Like
It is.
I'm sure you remember the times where female competition was so small or not, even non-existent. There was
Yeah.
nobody to train with, nobody to compete with.
Mm-hmm.
Now you go to Worlds, you go to Pan Ams, there's, hundreds, thousands of other
Oh
women.
yeah.
There's plenty of them, and it creates this amazing platform for you to test yourself, to make these relationships and connections with people from around the world, right? And I know you have competed yourself a
Uh-huh.
number of times
Successfully.
You're right, absolutely.
Thank
I mean,
you.
Jen rocks it.
I mean,
So
I feel like I've kind of retired from competition for the past couple years.
how come?
honestly, just teaching has become my passion. Like I feel more fulfilled teaching. It's 3 years now that I've had the women's program, since I started it. And, you know, I think when I probably competed a good like 6 years consistently where I was going to worlds, masters worlds, pans. I mean, that gets expensive. That's a lot of training. I was doing the opens. And I think a lot of it, I threw myself into that because I was avoiding certain things in life. And it's an incredible experience, and I did it. But I don't feel like, I don't want to say I don't need it anymore. That like I'm never going to compete. But once I started teaching, that just evolved a bit. And I feel so much more fulfilled in that role than I do in competing.
Again, it boils down to priorities, right? What we want to
You
do
know?
in life.
Yeah, and I think it's great for people to. I'm so grateful I've experienced it and done well with it, and it taught me so much about myself. And I definitely recommend women, anybody, to try and compete. Even one competition. You don't have to. I never pressure anybody, but I'm going to be super supportive if they want to try it. And it's like you learn so much about yourself from that one tournament than you do just in months of training. So I think it is really, really beneficial, but it's awesome to see how many women there are now competing. And even, a few years back, there were less women than there are now. It's, the groups, as you got higher in belts, it was in ranks, it was like just a few of the same people. But it's a different case now and it's awesome. There's nothing that makes me more thrilled than to see more women, on the competition scene, training jujitsu. Some of my best friends are people that I've competed against. It's like, and it's incredible the bonds that are formed. And anyone that you meet from anywhere in the world, if they do jujitsu, they're awesome. Like you can trust that person. You're like, oh, you're cool. You're good. And you just create this, this awesome group of friends. And it's amazing.
Well, isn't it interesting that the things that we are concerned about, the things that we are scared of, like putting ourselves in compromised position, being in this intimate situations, right? I mean, developing the trust or not having the trust with your partner, whoever they are.
Right.
And then almost instantly, this turns in the 180 degrees, the opposite direction, where you develop this trust with that person, the friendship starts, and then next thing you see each other everywhere and you train together. You even make special trips just to visit that person. I mean, that relationship takes off almost instantly, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, one of my best friends, we competed, against each other. I mean, she calls me her sister. Her kids call me Auntie Jen. I mean, it's crazy, and like she lives in Atlanta and she choked me out at Pans one year. We were at purple belt. I think I took silver or bronze that year. I don't remember. And she took gold. And it was awesome. We both took our gis off. We had all these tattoos and we're like, oh my God. I mean, we even look alike. She looks like my mom. It's crazy. But just instant bond. It was like, that was it. Then I started, training in Atlanta with her and she'd come here like every 6 months we travel and see each other. It's just crazy. And there's so many other people like that I've connected with. And it's great seeing everyone when you're competing and you wait to like get together. It's a big reunion. It's so much fun. And even though you're out there competing, we need each other to do that. If we didn't have each other there, we wouldn't have the opportunity to compete. People are always like, Jen, the guys tease me all the time. They're like, you're going to go out there and compete. And then you like give the person a big hug and you're best friends. Yeah, that's how it works. Like, I'm grateful that person was there. So I had the experience to be able to compete. Without them, I don't have that. And we're all out there. We're working hard for the same thing. So we can relate. We know how much, energy that takes and dedication. So, how could you not, be best friends? I mean, come on.
Well, and that's really the cool part that, female bond, especially in jiu-jitsu, is so much different than man bond.
Yes,
Like,
I know.
us guys, we're like, boom, that's it. And then, but you guys are the huggers and
I agree with that on the surface, but I think underneath it's because of ego. I think men are the same way, but they carry that macho BS around.
Well, we can't show feelings.
Right?
What are you talking about?
You know what I'm talking about. Because when my best friends, obviously now in this station of my life, are from on the mat, right?
Uh-huh.
And we don't you're right. We don't talk the same way. We don't hug, when we're done or anything like that. But I bet the inside emotions are exactly the same. We're feeling Thomas is too old school to admit this, but I think the feelings on the inside are exactly the same. We just can't bring each other to express it, right? Because we know we're going to hear about it from somebody else.
I think there's that respect,
right?
like you guys, for sure. And you may not express it the same way. But I will say, like, I think a lot, ever since I started training, I think everyone at the gym, guys included, there's a lot more hugs that go around now. And that's been one of the hardest things with this pandemic. Is like, no.
Yeah, no hugs.
That's my favorite thing. No aggressive cuddle hugs. But no, it's great. I think the ego, like, listen, man, I mean, women, like, they're feisty. Like, we will get out there and,
for sure.
Go for it. And there's that ego, but, it's not as much. Yeah, I think we can see it. It's like, that was awesome. And then we can befriend each other a little more, like, got the hugs and the love,
You're absolutely right. I think in some cases, the females are actually tougher than guys.
I think a lot of the female matches are sometimes a lot more fun to watch.
I agree.
There's an aggression there. You see it in, whether it's a jiu-jitsu match or, I remember how people balked when, like UFC started having female fighters, and very quickly everybody was like, man, these women are really going at it. Not only are they top level, but from just an entertainment perspective, it changed. I think it changed a ton for people.
I mean, guys have the egos, but like women have, I mean, we have passion and heart. Like, it's like we are passionate about things. So I feel like getting out there, it's like you're gonna see that. Even if it's in a fighting athletic sport, it's just we go out there and fight for what we love.
Yeah.
Do you think that's because you had to fight differently for respect in the martial arts, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think sometimes. I mean, I think there's a case of having to prove yourself. Like, there is that. Sometimes with guys, the ego, like, oh, I'm not going to let this girl tap me, or, oh, this is just a girl. I mean, I don't know. I'm my structure, like, I'm a little taller and I can lay down the smash a little bit. So but I'm not like a little more like small and dainty, but yeah. I mean, I think sometimes there are guys that, especially when they're new to the sport, they think, oh, it's a girl, whatever. And then it's like, okay, I'll just, let me just lay a little pressure down for a second. Then we're good. It's like, you got to kind of just lay down that law a little bit. And then it's like, oh, okay, I see. It's like, yep.
Well, that's the beauty of the sport.
Right. Of course.
That's the best part behind it.
Yeah. It's very humbling.
Yeah. So I know one of the obstacles in life that you have encountered is, before we get there,
Okay.
there are some people who getting, into this sport, and they often, there are several reasons why not to do it. I often think there's more reasons not to do it than actually do it. About it, right? I mean, and one of them is, body limitations and physical obstacles and so on. And I know you have encountered some of those things of nature by yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk about this? Do you want to share that story quickly? Because I think a lot of people would appreciate the fact that not everything always is perfect. There are things that we have to overcome in order to do what we love. And that really could drive some people to make that first step.
Yeah. So, a couple of things here. I mean, when I, and I don't know if you might be referencing my scoliosis or my weight loss journey. Because, when I was 25, I was 230 pounds. And, I started, so I started my own journey health-wise. I wanted to change. I was in a very depressed, like, bad breakup state. And, so I carried it well because I'm tall. People didn't like realize, like, oh, you weighed that much, and they're like, I don't remember that. And, but, I lost a lot of weight, and it was all through healthy eating and working out. And then later, I found jujitsu, which was great. Like I said, it was 25 I started, but at 31. But since I was younger, I've always struggled with scoliosis. So I have a curvature of my spine, an S curve, and it's more so on the right side of my back. And I think jujitsu, you know, I've gone to chiropractor since I was 16. I had to wear a brace when I was in, 8th grade, I think is when they fit me in it. And I was supposed to wear it my first year of high school. And I used to sneak out of the house pretending I had it on. And I kept it locked upstairs in my room, like walking out kind of stiff. Thank God it didn't go up to the neck like back in the day. But, you know, I was just like, yeah, I have it on. But I had already had my growth spurt. So I was like, this isn't really going to do much. So I wore it for about a year, 23 hours a day. And, you know, I've fortunately, it's about a 30-degree curve. So it was never enough to have surgery. And, you know, you want to avoid having a rod in your center, you know, possible. But thankfully through like chiropractic care and then really, you know, working out and strengthening my muscles and getting stronger. And I think jujitsu has really just helped with my flexibility, my mobility, my strength, my core, which we all know is really going to help support, you know, your back. But it is, you know, I know everyone has a little bit of a harder time on a certain side in jujitsu, but like inversions are not my best friend. I don't like inverting because I tend to get a lot of tension and pressure that comes up to my neck. So anytime I'm like kind of rolling on my neck a little bit or the shoulders, I get a little weary. And I can, you know, I'm not really stable on my right side because of my curve. So, you know, sometimes I can play like half guard from my right side, but, you know, just because of the unevenness, I do feel like my movement is hindered a little bit, if that makes sense. But like, I know inversions are my biggest thing that I really struggle with. Everything else I feel like I can do. Honestly, one of the hardest things for my body is to stand all day. Like doing makeup, when I was doing makeup a lot, to have to stand for hours in one position, that would kill my back. So the movement, being on the mat is really good. That mobility, that movement, that flexibility. When I'm moving, I feel great. You know, when I'm lifting, I feel awesome, but it's when I'm just in a certain position for a long period of time, especially standing where I feel a lot of pain. And, you know, emotionally, like sometimes I feel like self-conscious, you know, I'm like, oh, do I like, you know, have a hump like in my back, and my family and my boyfriend's like, you can't even tell, like, you can't even tell that it's there, but it's something like in pictures and things like that. And in movement, um, you know, sometimes I get self-conscious about it and I can tell that it's there. And I'm like, oh, is that like beastly? I have this hump. You know, but then I'm like, no, it's who I am. It's, you know, I talk about it. I appreciate it. I acknowledge it. And that's just how my body is. And now more so I've felt on the left side of my body, my ribs kind of compress in a little bit. So because of my spine, so I have like a rib that kind of shifts. So I can't really do like full side twists, if that makes sense, like with weight, because I feel like a clicking. So sometimes I can feel that in you know, jujitsu, there's just a little, you know, compression, but you know, it's just something that I continue to strengthen all the time. And like I said, chiropractic care has kind of been my savior for that.
It sounds to me like you know the limitations, you know the situations, you
Mm-hmm.
own the bubble and you work around it. It doesn't really
Quantify.
stop you from doing what you want to do. It's
No.
you need to adapt to the situation that you're in.
Yes.
Which is, you know, technically this is not much different with, you know, being left-handed or right-handed. I mean, if you
Mm-hmm.
look at it from a very global perspective, you
Right.
adapt to the situation that you are in, right? And I
Exactly.
think often, so often, I think you find students and clients and people out there who very quickly will disregard or just discard
Mm-hmm.
an opportunity to do something amazing
Mm-hmm.
just because they notice it's just not easy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I think people can come up with excuses all the time. And honestly, you know, I think there's people that just may not really want to do something, but I think there's sometimes an underlying fear or emotion
Mhm.
or self-conscious behavior or whatever it may be. I think there's usually something a little bit deeper that is going on that's kind of preventing that person from moving forward with something. But you know, it's really getting around that mindset. Like I'm just the type of person, if someone tells me I can't do something, I'm going to prove them wrong. Like, no, what do you mean? Like, okay,
Me right there.
but it's like, really?
Ask
I
Gary.
can't do that? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll find a way to do it. Let me show you. So, but I think there's always ways we can modify and adapt. Everybody's different. Everybody's unique. Everybody has something going on, that they might have to adapt to, or that could be a little bit of an obstacle, if it's physically or emotionally. But I think we just have to know that there are so many ways, especially in jujitsu. I've had people that are like older that have wanted to start, in their like 60s. They're like, oh my gosh, can I do jujitsu? I feel like I'm not as athletic, this and that. Of course you can. We modify. Are you going to go out to an open mat on your first day? You know what I mean? No, but we're going to find the in between. We're going to modify, and we're going to start getting your body adjusted and used to certain movement.
Yeah, I
There's
had
always an opportunity.
I had screwed up my shoulder, which led to some back issues, and then I've from a high fall when I was a kid, I had lower back issues, and I remember when I called the academy, I laid that out, and I was scared about it mostly, right? And they were, the person here was like, we'll work with it, we'll work around it. And then actually, coincidentally, a couple years before, I ran into somebody from Reykjavik, who was like, yeah, dude, don't worry about it, we'll take care of you, come in, we'll hook you up with the right people. So it's all about that first step, picking up the phone, and admit it, get it out there, get it, because I think, like anything, if you get it off your chest, it's going to make everything easier. And you make the phone call, you get it off your chest, and the next thing you know, you're walking through the door, and then you're on the mat.
But that's the key. Like you brought that up. I think having, when you're aware and you communicate some fears that you have. I mean, listen, nobody wants to get hurt, and that's probably one of the biggest things that people are scared about when they start jujitsu. Because they see it and think they ultimately have to dive in at a certain point. It's like, well, no, we're going to start you here. You're not going to be like rolling around right away. But just having, those training partners and those people who are more advanced and skilled that can work with those new people and make them feel comfortable and make them feel safe. And then I think when people do that or have the conversation, that fear is not so big in their mind, and they see like, oh, I can do this. Okay. Let's start with the next step. Just like we were talking about earlier, breaking it down, learning little by little. And then they believe in themselves a little more. They have that courage and that confidence. And then when you're confident, you're less likely to get injured because you're not as worried, So, yeah.
Jen, as we're wrapping this up, what is the one thing that you would tell females out there to start jiu-jitsu that summarizes in 1 or 2 sentences? The big advice, the $1 million.
He likes to put people on the spot.
Oh, that
holy cow!
She knows that already.
I mean, it's something that's always going to be there for you. It's always going to have your back. It's, like I said, it's the love of my life. It's been my best friend throughout some of the hardest times, and it's just given me so much confidence and self-love and courage to do things and make decisions that I never thought I could in my life. And I think somebody having that tool is definitely going to help them on and off the mat, just in life in general.
Beautiful.
I can never thank jiu-jitsu enough. So.
Beautiful. Jennifer, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing all these thoughts. Where people can find you? You have so many projects, so many things right now. Let's run down that list, where they can find you, all the websites, all the social media. Go.
Okay. So Instagram is at Embrace Amazing. My website is embrace-amazing.com. My Facebook is Embrace Amazing with Jen Z, or my personal is just Jennifer Zanotti. And the Jen Z podcast.
The Jen Z podcast. We didn't even talk about that.
That's a whole other, we got a lot to talk about. Like you said, 10 episodes.
10 episodes, that's it. But you got to check out the Gen Z podcast. That's some awesome stuff going on over there. So I'm a big fan. So
almost 2 years now. Crazy.
Good for you.
Yeah, nice.
Like I said, you're a celebrity. We are rookies right here. You're a celebrity.
So. You guys are doing great. I love your setup. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for having me on.
Jen, thank you. Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Peace. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you for listening to ROL Radio. Check out all future episodes on our website and all major podcast platforms. Take care.